Yo guys, what is going on? Lucky here, and in today's top 5 video I bring you the top 5 best ramming vehicles in the game. So if you're new to ramming and you don't know how the ramming mechanic actually works, the amount of ramming damage you can do depends on 3 main factors. 1. The weight of your vehicle, 2. The speed when you hit your target, and 3. The armor thickness of the part of your vehicle where you make contact with your enemy. And if you really want to boost your ramming potential to the max, you can use the driver skill control impact, and you can use the super heavy spallliner to minimize returning ram damage. But in today's list we are going to rank the vehicles only on the 3 main stats, which of course are weight, speed and armor. And also, please take note that this also is kinda based on my personal opinion as well, so please don't butcher me too much in the comment section if your favorite rammer isn't in this list. But anyways, with all that said, let's dive straight into the list. At number 5 we have the AMX 50B. What? Surprised? Well, you're not the only one, because when I first thought about the AMX 50B making this list, I had a little giggle inside, because when you firstly think of the AMX 50B, you think about a heavy support vehicle with a very bad turret armor and a lot of speed. But if you start to dig deeper in the stats of this vehicle, you can see that it still has quite some weight, since it comes in at a weight of 62 tons. And combine that with a massive top speed of 65 km per hour, driven by a 1200 horsepower engine, and to top it all off, 170mm of frontal hull armor as well. So these stats combined actually make this vehicle a surprisingly good rammer. But you do have to consider that this vehicle would be the least practical rammer, since if you boost into your enemies, fair enough, the ram damage might be quite tasty, but the lack of traverse speed makes sure that you can't retreat back into cover fast enough, and the lack of overall armor means that you'll most likely die after the first ram, which is of course not so practical. So therefore the AMX 50B only sits on spot number 5 on this list. So now we move on to the number 4 spot, which goes to the IS-7. So we probably all know the IS-7 as being one of the oldest heavy tanks out there. But who knew that this vehicle also had some hidden ram powers? Because if you take a look at the stats, you can see that the IS-7 has quite some weight to itself, weighing 68 tons. It also has a very healthy top speed of 59.6 km per hour, and it also has a 1200 horsepower engine. And with an armor thickness of about 150mm on the front, it kind of falls into the same position as the AMX 50B. But why is the IS-7 placed higher then? Well, that's simply because of its survivability after the ram. Because as I previously mentioned, the AMX 50B is pretty much screwed after performing a ram, while the IS-7 still lacks the traverse turnaround. But in contrast with the AMX 50B, the IS-7 does actually have the armor to bounce a few of the returning shots after the ram, which might give the IS-7 an opportunity to get into cover in time and to survive. And only because of that, the IS-7 beats the AMX 50B and secures the number 4 position on this list. So then at the number 3 spot we have the AMX M454. So the AMX M454 is the more heavily armored French heavy variant, and is of course still a rather new addition to the game, with it only being out a month or so. It shines in many ways, especially because it has a very punchy gun for its mobility and armor. And as you might not have expected it, it also has a hidden talent, which is that it is quite a good rammer, since it comes in at a very healthy 80 tons, the highest we have seen so far. And combine that with 122mm of frontal armor and a top speed of 40 km per hour with a massive 1200 horsepower engine, that combination makes this vehicle indeed a very punishing rammer. So from now on you might better watch out if you see one of these vehicles on top of a hill with you below it. And because of that, the AMX M454 claims the number 3 spot on this list. So at the number 2 spot we have the KV5. And of course, how would this list be complete without the legendary Ram King himself, the KV5? This vehicle has been known for quite a long time for its ramming skills, and if you take a look at its gun, it suddenly becomes clear why this vehicle is such an excellent rammer. Because 167mm of base pan on a tier 8 vehicle is simply useless in a tier 8 matchup. So I guess the KB5 has the ram factor for a good reason. And I guess we are speaking of the ram factor with a capital R, since this vehicle weighs a massive 100 tons. With a 40 km/h top speed and 180mm of frontal armor, the only thing that this vehicle is missing, and that's also the reason why this vehicle misses out on the number 1 spot, and that is that it has a rather weak horsepower per ton ratio. Because it might have that 40 km/h top speed, but the massive 1200 horsepower engine is simply still too weak to bring this heavy pile of steel to that 40 km/h mark. But if you happen to be driving off a big slope, you will actually reach that top speed, and then you will absolutely crush everyone with ease. So solely because of that, the KB5 claims the number 2 spot on this list. And now, before I reveal the number 1 spot, I do need to give one honorable mention to the mouse. Of course, how can we forget to at least mention the heaviest tank in the entire game, the almighty mouse. Because this steel beast comes in at a massive 190 tons. That's almost twice as heavy as the number 2 spot, the KB5. And the mouse also has 200mm of frontal armor. But why doesn't the mouse quite make this list then? Well, that is because the mouse simply can't ram vehicle out of itself, since it's simply too damn slow, with it being limited to a top speed of only 20 km/h. And fair enough, it has a massive 1750 horsepower engine, but that still isn't quite enough to give this thing a decent acceleration, since the horsepower per ton ratio is a very poor 9.26. But if an enemy is actually stupid enough to ram the mouse at full speed, then you are most likely absolutely going to crush that enemy who decides to ram into you. And just because of that, the mouse truly deserves an honorable mention in this list. And now, the moment you probably all have been waiting for, the number 1 spot goes to the E50M. So here you have it, the absolute king of the rams, the E50M. This vehicle is simply born to crush every medium and light in its path, even though the E50M's gun is actually made to snipe from longer distances, so you should be safe most of the times. But when you piss it off or you just come too close, most E50M drivers won't hesitate, so you can expect to get absolutely crushed if it has its eyes on you. And for a good reason, since this medium tank weighs a very healthy 65 tons. That might not sound like much if you compare it to, for example, the KB5, but if you combine that with 150mm of frontal armor and a 1200 horsepower engine, you've got yourself a very deadly rammer, because the key difference and the main reason why the E50M beats the KB5 and even the mouse is because of its massive 19.26 horsepower per ton ratio. This allows the vehicle to slam its weight against its target with such great power that its target will pretty much lose around 500 hit points every single time, of course depending on the weight of their vehicle, of course. And simply because of that, the E50M gets crowned as the king of the rams and secures the number 1 spot on this list. So guys, now we have come to the end of this top 5 episode, so if you enjoyed the video or found it useful, please consider giving it a like. I would highly appreciate it. Also, if you're new to this channel, hit that subscribe button so you will stay up to date with all my future content. And also comment down below what your top 5 best rammers would be. I'm very curious on your opinions as well. But for now, I'm just going to say have an awesome day and I'll catch you guys later.